Before this war's over, I'm going to kill you. Why wait? Soon.
Welcome to episode 87 of the Backlot 605 podcast. I'm one of your hosts. I am Casey Kelterman. Join with me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Brian Mensing.
Bring it down back here a little bit. Hey, how's it going? Holy cow, man.
What's that? Am I yelling?
You're yelling.
Loud noises.
You're just excited for what we're going to talk about today.
I'm excited because today's topic is one of my favorites as we begin our July 4th America miniseries.
America!
We're kicking it off with the Mel Gibson classic, The Patriot, with our special guest a little later on in the show, Mr. Dave Holly of the Dave Holly Hour. So Mr. Dave Holly, he is a podcaster here, also from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and he interviews and talks to people in the arts and entertainment world, which, I mean, we have crossed paths many times with some of the topics that we discuss.
We are part of the arts and entertainment.
Yeah, I think
We're
we
the
fall in there.
I don't know how artful we are, but we're entertainment.
We're talking about arts. How about that?
Oh, okay. All right, I'll give you
Film is
that.
an art. And yeah, so that'll be a little later on in the show on the second half. But of course, we got to kick it off with Brian and the news.
The news. Some of this news I don't know what I think about. Well, I'll just start off with that. First one here is it looks like Nickelodeon, who currently is the ones that own the rights to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, are set to reboot for a new CGI movie. Now,
For what's the characters?
What?
You did not mention the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in that.
Well, I hadn't got that far yet.
I'm sorry. You just said CGI movie. I'm like, of what?
I hadn't got that far. Thank you for spoiling it for me.
For the Turtles.
For the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Here's the part that really throws me off is that we've got Nickelodeon teamed up with Point Grey Pictures, which is the production company of Seth Rogen. Now, picturing Seth Rogen and the Turtles, I picture, hey, that's a match. I can work with that. The Turtles and Nickelodeon, that's something that's been working for some time. But it's the idea of Seth Rogen and Nickelodeon, like there's just something about that just doesn't seem to work for me. Like Seth Rogen's been getting into especially into the producer side of things. He did an outstanding job when him and Evan Goldberg did the Preacher series for AMC. Like he definitely knows what he's doing on the producer side of things, and I'm picturing Nacho Libre all over again, which for me personally, as a Nickelodeon film, was just not good.
I'm of two minds here. One, Nacho Libre is great, and anyone who says different, I get because it is not that great. Two, I like this because Seth Rogen and his partner in crime, Evan Goldberg, they know how to produce stuff.
Agreed.
That's the
part I will give you.
And they know what the audience is because for their films, they know they're trying to hit the stoner audience for the Seth Rogen pictures. Okay?
Right.
But with Preacher, they're trying to hit a certain demographic with that is different than the stoner audience. So I feel they understand what Nickelodeon is looking for with a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. I think this is the way to go with the Turtles going forward, because I don't feel they will ever go back to the practical suits of the
oh no, never
390s films. They won't go back to that. Obviously, the Michael Bay produced films are horrendous, and they have heard that from the fans for years now. But the one outlier has always been the CGI Turtles film, which many consider to be the best Turtles film. So I think this is a good place to go for this. And another thing I like in here, Jeff Rowe is set to direct, who directed numerous episodes of one of my favorite animated shows, Gravity Falls for Disney, which if they had that kind of tone with a Turtles film, I'm all in, because that hits a good balance of, this is a kid's show, but adults can enjoy it just as much, maybe even more than the kids. And
Here's my question though, especially when you bring up the fact that we got Gravity Falls in here, is you make the reference in regards to the CGI of the Michael Bay produced turtle movies, right? And this is Nickelodeon. I picture this looking more like TMNT than looking like the Michael Bay reboot.
yes, yes, I think it's going to look more like what year did that come out? 2007?
It was a while ago. At one point, I bought it on DVD.
I was right. TMNT 2007.
Mm-hmm.
I feel, yes, it would lean more towards that than the Michael Bay films. But I feel Nickelodeon's been having, I think they've had 2 or 3 animated Turtles shows on their channel, and those change in animation style as well. So I think this will have a very unique style.
Maybe this will have a sausage party style.
One can only hope. Yeah, I think this is great. And I mean, if Seth Rogen wants to get involved more than producing, I'm all for him being Michelangelo.
Oh my gosh. For it. Yes. I could be definitely behind that. He would be the perfect Michelangelo for voice acting.
Yeah, I don't need him and James Franco and Jonah Hill and Craig Robinson to play the Turtles, but if Seth Rogen wants to throw his hat in there to play Michelangelo, I'm okay with that.
I would be okay with it if Seth did it, Jonah Hill. You know, since they've got that great working relationship, I could see Jonah pulling off Michelangelo as well.
Yeah, maybe. I think any of those guys could fit in there.
Maybe not Craig Robinson.
I would watch a Craig Robinson Raphael.
Ooh, there you go. Maybe we do get the crew back. Maybe we do have Sausage Party 2.0.
Maybe this is the end of the Turtles.
Right? James Franco is Leonardo.
Oh, boy. No, so James Franco would be Master Splinter.
Okay, so James Franco's Master Splinter. What's that mean? That is...
I would say Jay Baruchel is Leonardo.
Okay, and then we've got Raphael is Craig Robinson.
Yeah.
And then that would give Donatello to Jonah Hill?
Yeah, why not?
Well, there we go.
And then I get Shredder, of course, Danny McBride.
I love this fan casting already. As we fan cast the movie that will never get made.
Yep. It never will, but
not like that anyway.
We can dream.
Mm-hmm. And we'll get, I don't know, with some of the, you know, like Audrey Plaza or Rose Byrne, somebody else who's worked with Seth Rogen as
Allison Brie.
Ooh, there you go.
Yep.
As April O'Neil.
I would actually like to see her as a live action April O'Neil now that I think of it.
Yeah. Casey. What about Casey? How about Casey? Casey Jones.
Casey Jones. I think then you got to go Channing Tatum.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Then we definitely know we got to have Jonah Hill in it, because we got to have some sort of banter between those two.
It's either Channing Tatum or Zac Efron. Those are the 2 hot guys in that group.
Yeah. I think for the sake of the voice, I would go Tatum before Efron.
Yeah.
Wow, we made just the weirdest fan casting ever.
I'd still watch it, but
I would watch that in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah, I'm in for this. I think this is it's a good step forward for Nickelodeon and Paramount with the Turtles.
Paramount, give us what we're looking for. All right. Hopefully a good Turtles movie.
Yes, that's all we want, please.
All right. So the next little piece of news here, I don't know what I think about this. Is
I know exactly how I feel about this.
Our man, you can't even. Oh my God, man! I'm looking at that show notes, and you just compared him to an adult brunch beverage.
That's his name, Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa of Aquaman and Game of Thrones is slated to be the voice for Warner Brothers in a live-action Frosty the Snowman film. Jason Momoa is Frosty the Snowman. So Aquaman is getting a little chilly for the winter and becoming frosty. What do you think there, Casey?
I don't care. I don't. Okay, so Jason Momoa. I don't like Jason Momoa.
Why don't you?
He's fine as Aquaman. He is way too dude broy for me. Like it feels like he's just not a good actor. I think that's maybe the best thing I got to put. He is a hot guy with a lot of tattoos and cool hair. That doesn't scream Frosty the Snowman to me. I
Those
don't know,
tattoos on Aquaman aren't real.
but he has tattoos.
Oh no.
Yeah. Unless Frosty is going to be looking like Jason Momoa, I don't. What are they doing? Who is asking for this? Because I assume, and maybe,
Warner Brothers is like, we already have our in with Jason Momoa.
I get that.
What else can we do? You know, what else can Warner Brothers do to entice Jason to stay on that side of the fence so he doesn't go and jump himself into an MCU movie?
I'm like, okay, how many times do we have to try the CGI live action snowman film? Okay, Michael Keaton couldn't do it. Jack Frost the Killer Snowman couldn't do it. Why do we think Jason Momoa voicing Frosty the Snowman is going to work in live action?
Because why not? You're not wrong. You are not wrong. Like,
I don't know who this is for, man. I don't know.
I will be curious as to see what happens and how this comes to fruition. But I guess time will tell.
Sure.
Sure.
Let's move on to the next piece.
Let's move on to the next piece. This one I actually just came across here just a few minutes ago. I guess it's been out all day. Again, we're recording on a weird little Thursday here for us here. And it looks like Walmart is getting into the drive-in theater market. You know, everybody, obviously, we can't get to theaters. People want to watch their movies. We want to watch our movies. And they currently right now are slated to turn 160 of their parking lots into drive-in theaters. No word on where or even when as of yet, just that that's what they're going to be start doing. They're actually partnering with the Tribeca Enterprises for this to run through October. So they have some long-term plans for this. I'm kind of curious. How big are some of these parking lots? How much of a turnaround are we going to get that this is going to be, well, it's Walmart. It'll be profitable for them somehow. What do you think Walmart getting into the drive-in business?
I feel they're capitalizing on what people are asking for right now. I mean, everybody is looking to get out of the house. We want to see movies on the biggest screen possible, and theaters in most places is just not an option. And for many of those places, it probably won't be an option at all this year.
Right.
I mean, we talk about the movies keep moving back, and they just push them back 2 weeks and 2 weeks and 2 weeks further back. And I'm like, guys, let's just hold off on these releases until we figure out what is going on, because I don't know if we're going to be back in the theaters to watch a new movie this year. I don't know if we are. But if we can get in repertory screenings at drive-ins and, you know, some of the smaller theaters like we have in Sioux Falls that still are operating at a lower capacity, I feel that's the way to go to keep the theaters alive. And I feel people have been talking about the death of movie theaters forever. Theaters aren't going anywhere. The chains might, but movie theaters are not going anywhere, and it's because of things like this. The drive-ins are thriving. Walmart is giving people what they want, which is, I think, a good thing. I don't expect anything crazy from Walmart. I'm expecting maybe some Disney fare and the classics, but I think it's a good idea.
One of the things that it kind of makes me think of, and you know, maybe this is a shift. You know, you make the references that the movie theaters aren't going anywhere, that sort of thing, and I can lean both ways on it, you know. But one thing that this is giving people is there are people, even our age, my age, who have never been to a drive-in theater. They've never had that experience.
So you've never been to a drive-in?
I'm almost 42 years old. I've never been to a drive-in, even knowing that I live not that far from the Vern Drive-In Theater outside of Laverne, Minnesota.
We need to make a backlot trip. We have to.
Yes, but it's one of those things that there are people in their 20s who've never had the opportunity to experience a drive-in. Maybe this is something that is to our advantage that will give us a bit of a resurgence in the drive-in market and whatnot, to the point where we'll be able to have drive-ins again.
Mm-hmm. I think hopefully this will keep drive-ins around. I mean, we've seen it here in South Dakota that drive-ins, the drive-in in Mitchell, the Starlight, has been closed for, I think,
13 years?
Yeah, at least I think it was right around a decade, more or less, and
Mm-hmm.
it's opened back up and it's selling out almost every weekend for every screening, and that's crazy, and I love seeing that. And I think this is another good opportunity for people to get out and watch a movie on the biggest screen possible.
I would have to agree with that. All right. So what was the one little thing here that I'm a part of here as well is that, as many people are aware of, I'm actually one of the staff members for this year's SuperCon here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Unfortunately, due to everything going on and COVID and all that fun stuff here, unfortunately, the con in September has been canceled. We are working on getting everything lined up, because even though the uh, the physical con is canceled, we are actually doing a virtual convention, which will take place in October. And for some reason,
The third, 3 and 4.
yeah, since it's the third and fourth. Yes, my brain was my brain's an autopilot, seems like, here all of a sudden. Yes, the third and fourth, we will be doing it online. You can check that out on SuperCon's website itself, supercon.com, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Make sure you're checking for any of the updates. We'll be releasing updated information here in regards to panels and guests and stuff like that here shortly. But even though we're not going to have a physical convention here in Sioux Falls this year, unfortunately, we are going to be doing the online convention here in October. And there's other stuff that is in the works that will be news still to come.
Yeah, I felt we had to discuss this. We have a very close connection to SuperCon. One being Brian being a staff member there. That's a pretty big connection.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, and we've been past guests before. We had a live podcast there last year, as well as a vendor booth, and we were very much looking forward to attending again this year. And of course, our good friend Mr. Charlie Eccles, the what's his title? The chairman of SuperCon.
He's the director.
He's the director.
He's my boss.
He's the boss, Mr. Charlie Eccles.
He's my boss.
He unfortunately had to make that announcement a few days ago, and I was happy to hear that it was going forward online. I think that is a great step for this, and I mean, we've been in talks with Mr. Eccles about how Backlot can participate in this upcoming event, and
yep. And that's where I was to say we've got things still to come.
We'll keep you informed on that. We're working on some stuff. We'll leave it at that. So. And I do believe that is the last of the news.
That is the last of what I've got for news today. I will definitely try to make sure that I keep us in the ear and let everybody know what is going on with SuperCon as I know it, or am allowed to tell about it. And yes, definitely make sure you're checking out SuperCon.
I'm gonna piggyback off that really quick here because we did just announce this on our social medias, but we have not announced it on the show yet. We will be doing another live show.
Yes, we will.
August 30th. That is a Sunday at 6. What's that?
Why didn't you put that in my news section?
I completely forgot about it until we were talking about it right now. But here it is. So August 30th, that is a Sunday, 6 o'clock. This will take place on Facebook Live. We are keeping with, no gathering, keeping the gathering to a minimum on this again. But the topic we are going to be discussing and doing is the top 20 films of the two greatest action stars of all time, Mr. Governor himself, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Mr. Sylvester Stallone. So we're going to be doing Arnie, Sly, top 20 movies of all time of theirs. Brian, you will be hosting. I will be taking place, doing my best to not mess up the list. We're also going to be joined by previously mentioned Mr. Charlie Eccles, Stallone superfan himself, as well as Backlot's own Blake Ginnathan and Derek Vierink. So that'll be coming up again August 30th, 6 p.m. Facebook Live.
Nice.
Yes. So
I think this is going to be super fun, and I'm glad I'm going to be the one hosting, because I would do us a disservice, because as much as I have to say and probably feel guilty is that my Stallone and Schwarzenegger movies are probably a little lean, and I would not do a good job in participating and giving you guys a good comprehensive list, considering the fact that I've never watched all of the Rambo and or Rocky movies.
Yeah, I'm glad we got you in there. You're gonna have to keep the peace though, because I think there's a divide right down the middle in this on who's the Arnie guys and who's the Sly guys. And I mean, if you're a fan of the show and you listen to the show before, I think you might be able to figure out where some of our loyalties lie.
Yes.
Yes, Stallone all the way. So let's move to Coming Soon, written by Mr. Derek Vierink. That is available on Backlot 605 each and every Thursday. So you can check out everything coming soon to movie theaters, streaming services, drive-in theaters, and everything else in between. So this week's Coming Soon for the weekend of July 10th. We start off with The Old Guard, which is a Netflix original film starring Charlize Theron as she leads a team of immortal mercenaries. Also co-stars Chiwetel Ejiofor, and is directed by Gina Prince Bythewood, I believe is how you pronounce her last name, who directed Love and Basketball and Beyond the Lights. So The Old Guard, Netflix original film. Brian, are you going to be checking out The Old
Guard? To be honest, I've only seen the little TV spot only here as of a couple days ago. I didn't even know it was even going to be a thing. I like Charlize Theron. I will watch anything with her, and especially for the fact that it's an action movie. She literally kicks ass on screen. So I am definitely intrigued to check this movie out.
Yeah, I think I love the cast. I love Charlize. I love Chiwetel Ejiofor. But I'm gonna wait to figure out what the paid critics are saying about this.
We don't listen to paid critics, remember?
I mean, I listen to any critics. Everybody's a critic, but
everybody's a critic.
Yeah, maybe we'll wait to hear what Mr. Andy Heller, the fat dude, says about The Old Guard first.
Through that.
The next film that we got on here is a film that was originally planned for a theatrical release and is now heading to Apple TV on July 10th. This is the Tom Hanks-led Greyhound. Mm-hmm. It is about a World War II submarine thriller. It is written by Mr. Tom Hanks himself, so that's pretty cool. I don't have Apple yet. I think I might that and HBO. It might be heading into my lineup of streaming services, and not saying this is the one that'll bring me over, but this one might be the one that makes me use a free trial.
Oh,
that makes me sound super Iowa and Dutch by saying that. Maybe I'll just the free trial on that Tom Hanks movie there.
Yeah, use your free trial, eh?
Yeah, I was looking forward to this. I like Tom Hanks during World War II. You can't go wrong. Period. You can't go wrong.
Hasn't because I know that you got your dumb Android phone or whatever, but hasn't Kayla gotten a new iPhone here recently or something like that? You get your free year of Apple TV.
I have it available via my work, so I should just sign up with that because no one else use it.
An entire year for free.
I know. Be able to check out.
Great. How's that for the Dutch in you?
Yeah, I know. Free for entire. Wow. Yeah. I'm looking forward to this movie. I do want to check this one out though.
I think it looks good. I mean, in your atypical Tom Hanks, style of everything, I think it looks really good.
So the next thing, this is the one I'm going to be checking out, I think, weekend of release. And this is the Hulu original film, which was picked up from this year's Sundance for a mere $17.5 million. It is the Andy Samberg, Christine, how do you pronounce her last name? Melody? That sounds right. The comedy Palm Springs.
Sure.
So it is described as a Groundhog Day-esque rom-com set during a wedding. Also co-stars J.K. Simmons and Peter Gallagher. I've been looking forward to this movie since it did show up at Sundance earlier this year. I've been looking forward to this. I'm a big Andy Samberg guy. He's
your man crush since Hot Rod.
He is my man crush since Hot Rod, that's for sure. I think, out of all the comedic actors working today, he might be my favorite. He's the one where if I see his face on a movie poster, I'm like, yep, I'm watching that. And I mean, judging from our live show by me playing Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping, Samberg's my boy. So I'm very much looking forward to Palm Springs.
I think, it sounds, it has a good premise. I think it has a good cast. The one thing I will give Kristen Milioti, if that's how you pronounce her name correctly,
It sounds right.
is for everything that I've seen her in, I think she does a good job.
She's good.
She is good. I know her from How I Met Your Mother, and from she
was in The Wolf of Wall Street as well.
Thank you. You beat me to it. I was like, she plays the ex-wife in The Wolf of Wall Street.
She's really good in that.
Mm-hmm. So I definitely, her episode of Black Mirror is great. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. And if she's the one that people are like, who? Give her a chance, because it's definitely worth it.
I think this might be a big one for her. I'm excited to see J.K. Simmons and Andy Samberg team up again, because their chemistry and I Love You Man, I love it. It's so funny. And to see those two together, I think they play off each other so well.
I think J.K. Simmons is, for me, J.K. Simmons is very much a chameleon in that he can do funny, he can do satire, he can do drama, and you can pretty much put him in anything, and he seems to just gel with everyone.
He can do commercials. He can do it all.
Exactly. He makes me want to change car insurance. No, he doesn't.
Well, a little bit, just to hear his voice. But yeah, that's Palm Springs, Hulu, July 10th. The last one that we got here is The Beach House, which is a Shudder original film, July 9th. A beach house getaway goes awry for two couples. I remember seeing this trailer a while ago the poster a while ago for this film, and horror movies set on a beach, I think, are always a fun time. I do like checking those out. I haven't heard a whole lot about this movie, and this maybe is kind of another under the radar film that Shudder has picked up to put on their service, and maybe can blow up, or it'll at least get a decent audience to it.
Yeah, that's a possibility. It might be one of those ones that just because we hadn't heard about it doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be a good film.
Looks like it is the feature directorial debut for the director Jeffrey A. Brown. He has previously worked in production on some big films. He worked on Spider-Man 3, The Taking of Pelham 123, the Jimmy Fallon disaster Taxi. So he's worked on some movies and Taxi.
You make it sound like Taxi is a horrible movie.
It is a horrible movie. It killed Jimmy Fallon's movie career.
I've never seen it. Oh, I think Jimmy's doing just fine.
Oh, he's doing fine. He is, but his movie career is forever done because of that. That's what's coming soon, I believe. That's it. Yeah, so that's The Beach House, Shudder, July 9th. So yeah, you can check out, once again, coming soon each and every Thursday on backlot605.com for a full list of what is coming to soon to theaters, drive-ins, and to streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, we're going to take a little break, and we will be right back with our guest for today to discuss The Patriot with Mr. Dave Holly.
Be right back after this.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy, the chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
We are back on the Backlot 605 podcast. I am Casey Feldman. Joined with me, of course, is my co-host, Mr. Brian Mensing.
How's it going?
It's going great, Brian, and we're back with our guest for this week. He is the host of the Dave Holly Hour. He is Mr. Dave Holly himself. Dave, thank you so much for joining us on the Backlot 605 podcast to discuss the Mel Gibson, Roland Emmerich film.
I am honored as a patriot to be on this show. And thanks for the invite. Really been looking forward to this ever since you invited me, because I'm an older film buff typically. Don't get to as many things as I'd like to anymore, but have to wait a couple of years till they're out on something else. But otherwise, I do love a good film, and Patriot definitely is a good flick.
Yes, it is, and I can't wait to jump into this one. This is one of my favorite films and one of my favorite Mel Gibson films for sure. But before we get into the Patriot, though, I want to talk to Dave about his show, the Dave Holly Hour, because Dave, you are also from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and you are a podcast host. So all three of us got that in common. So
that we do.
There's not too many of us out there here in Sioux Falls for the podcast realm. So.
Surprisingly, considering that we're getting close to 200,000, you would think that there'd be more, considering there's 300,000 podcasts across the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like it's not a possibility for somebody to have one,
Exactly.
No. If me and Brian can do it, anyone can do it. So that's the motto.
That is fact right there.
Dave, let's talk a little bit about your show, because on your show, the Dave Holly Hour, you interview people from arts and entertainment from the Sioux Empire. Where did you come up with this idea for the show, first and foremost?
Well, I used to have the Dave Holly Hour on Kello AM back until 2005, before another company bought the stations in that building, and the promise of, we're not going to change anything, ended at about 4:30 that afternoon, and I was one of 7 that got let go, and so bounced around doing a few other things, filling in. Eventually got back into radio full-time for a brief amount of time before being let go by yet another company that at that time was a little scared of where the stock market was going, and I think that time I was the first of 13 that got let go. So I had done a show, an hour long, in the Kello AM booth as a talk show host, and interviewed a lot of arts and entertainment people, but also, a lot of people from City Hall, and just kind of a variety. And no matter what was topical, I at least tried to get them on. So when I decided to do the podcast, because I've been sitting here for years going, I just got to speak yet. I just want to talk, and I want to talk to people that have passion about what they do. And so at first, when I was kind of laying out the program, boy, I had about 7 or 8 segments I was going to try to put into an hour. And then the first interview I did was with Robin Byrne, executive director of the Sioux Empire Community Theater. And that interview went 27 minutes. And I could have, if I wanted to, probably taken a couple hours with Robin. Just a very interesting man. So then I still didn't have a tagline for it or anything. It was just going to be the Dave Holly Hour. And I started, about 2-3 episodes in, it's like, don't overcomplicate it with a bunch of frivolous stuff. You really love talking to people as a conversation and not a hard-hitting interviewer. And you're passionate about arts and entertainment. So that's when I came up with the tagline, Sioux Empire Arts and Entertainment Conversations, because I do lean heavily on the conversation part. Like I said, I'm not hard-hitting interviewer. And the best compliment that I've received about the show is, it's like eavesdropping on a private conversation between 2 very interesting people. And I told that to somebody else, and he says, wow, that's promotional gold right there. And
Right.
so that's what I love. And especially, I love talking to the people that are already here. You know, I'm thankful that we have great places like the Pavilion and the Denny Sanford Premier Center that can bring in national shows and so forth. And sometimes I will talk about the Pavilion because it does have a lot of local things too.
Hmm.
But, you know, it's highly unlikely that I would ever get the opportunity to interview Garth Brooks. And I, to be honest, would much rather talk to people that are already big stars here, not the big stars that come to town. And so I just love having a good conversation. And I know that I go off the rails all the time, and I have no problem with it because to me, that is part of a conversation, not a strict interview. And I'd prefer to keep it that way.
And that's the beauty of a podcast. We do that on ours too.
Yeah.
We start with the topic, and one of us thinks of something else, and we go off on a tangent for 5-10 minutes, and we're like, oh yeah, we were talking about something else. We gotta segue back to that.
Eventually, it all ties in,
Yeah.
so we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
We get there eventually.
Yeah, I've been recently catching up on your show because it was just sitting in my podcast feed forever, and of course, there's so many podcasts out there. But as soon as I listened to a couple of your podcasts, I'm like, this is my Thursday podcast right here.
Yeah.
Every Thursday.
Weekend Eve, buddy.
Yes, sir. And I just listened to it because we are recording this on a Thursday, a little early this week. And you did just drop a new podcast with
I did.
with a couple of the hosts of the Kellerland Living Show, which we were on. We were on 2 years ago almost, Brian?
Yeah,
Wow.
for Christmas.
Yeah,
for Christmas movies.
Christmas movies.
Oh yeah.
We had just
Tough to
kind of
go
just
wrong.
gotten this off the ground barely.
Yeah. And it was a fantastic interview, and what I love about it is you get of course you'll see these people about town and around town, and what you get to know these people on just a super personal level, and I just love that about your show.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And some of the
And I
things,
love your show too because it's about movies.
and let's get into it then, because today's topic, of course, is, as I said earlier, The Patriot. So this movie is kicking off our 4th of July miniseries, I guess is what we're going to call it. We're going to celebrate.
We don't want to call it our America series.
The America series.
Our America series.
American made.
Yeah, we're celebrating the 4th of July, the entire month of July. So we're talking 2000s, The Patriot, directed by Roland Emmerich, starring Mel Gibson and Heath Ledger. So I'm going to start off first with the first time that we all watched the film. Brian, I'm going to throw it off to you first because I think we have a shorter path to get to yours.
You think? The first time I saw the movie was at about 8:30 last night. Yeah.
Good enough to watch again?
Definitely good enough to watch
Okay.
again. Good enough to be able to say, okay, next time I watch this movie, I'm going to do it earlier than 8:30 at night, unless I'm going to do it on a weekend kind of thing, because I enjoy my sleep as well. But yeah. Yesterday was the first time in preparation for this. I think it's a great movie for us to start this little mini series off with. So yesterday.
Yeah. Dave, what about you? Do you remember the first time you watched The Patriot? Did you check this out in theaters when it came out in
No.
2000?
We watched it on VCR before we got too big into a DVD. And all I can remember was a Sunday afternoon that I watched it with my late father. And he was a huge patriot and loved all sorts of war movies. He was a World War II vet, and very natural for him to watch it. And I watched it along with him, just thinking, hey, great thing to do with Dad today on a Sunday afternoon, and was enthralled by it. And but like you guys, it was kind of like, ooh, wow, a little bit of length on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know. I immediately pulled it up and I'm like, all right, I'm in for the long haul tonight.
Yeah, I had forgot that this was a 2 hour and 45-minute long movie. I had never realized that before. Because the first time I watched this, I think it was either 8th grade or freshman year of high school, and we watched it during a history class when we were talking about the Revolutionary War. And first of all, this teacher, he liked to, instead of teaching, he'd show the movie instead. He was one of those teachers, which,
God bless him.
as a movie fan, I was all right with that. So
Right?
the only thing he did, though, that I thought was a little surprising, he fast forward through all the fighting war scenes while we were talking about the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
Which
Yeah, that makes no sense to me.
it does and it doesn't, because I mean the violence in this movie isn't too gratuitous, but we were all under the age of 17, which this is an R-rated movie, so it makes sense why he would try to censor it as best he could. But he was still, fast forwarding through the fights, and we could still see some of the action going on. And
like you hadn't seen anything worse than that in movies that you'd already been to. At
that point, no. Yeah, that was. I mean, it definitely was not the first R-rated movie I watched. Let's just put it that way. But The Patriot, this is one that I grew up with because I watched it in school, and I've gone to it a couple times since. And I just really love this movie and the aesthetic it presents, because in a way, this is Braveheart set during the Revolutionary War, which is all right. I'm all right with it. But I think everybody's really given their all in this movie, especially director Roland Emmerich. I think this is his best movie, first and foremost.
I do too, because it's just there's so many great things besides, the Revolutionary War, besides the family conflict. The overall picture of it with so many subplots and the scenery in it, because you can tell, now that we've got it on nice quality, big 52-inch TVs in our homes and so forth, you can see something in the background and go, yeah, but it was still done beautifully. Even with that, just the overall look, costuming, and the way that they were able to present that, I'm sure that if it were remade now, we'd be looking at, even more gratuitous fighting, and there'd probably be some huger special effects, and probably, the scenery and the background and so forth would be improved. But still, considering for 2000, that's a well-made movie.
Very much so.
Yeah, it's I took some notes while watching it this time, and that was the first thing I pointed out. The cinematography in this movie is my favorite part of it. I love the look of this movie.
Yeah.
It's got a very bright palette to it, but I think that adds to the story it's trying to tell, and like the underdog story throughout the movie, where even when you look at Mel Gibson and his crew in this, they're underdogs within the soon-to-be American army. They're the underdogs still. They're the ragtag group that he puts together of these guys that are hunters and small-town living people, and a reverend. And he puts this ragtag group together, and I think that the color palette and the cinematography really help build that. I mean, my favorite shot in this movie is about halfway into this, where Heath Ledger is his character, he plays Mel Gibson's son in the film. He is returning back to war, and he enters this abandoned house, and he looks out the window, and you just see this huge battlefield. And it's a green screen, but you also feel that he's still there, even though that is a green screen shot. You feel like he's watching his brothers, his neighbors on the battlefield at that point.
I just love the subplots of everything too. With the sister-in-law, so there's a little bit of romance in there, and there were so many things that I had forgotten that there's some touches of comedy in this show too.
Oh yeah,
that will just make you laugh. And I love that when you can have such a serious subject, portray it, and obviously we don't know if it was really that way, but we get a sense of things from what we know, and to be able to see all the blood and guts that takes place, but yet the tenderness of family and the communication styles that they had then too. We just like it's said in National Treasure by Nicolas Cage's character. People don't talk that way anymore. Right. And just the way that before they decide that they're going to war, as it's being decided at the assembly, and he sits there and stands up and says, "No, I'm not going, but basically saying whoever does has his, we can say blessing, I guess, but um, it's just that when there was a way to disagree with somebody without it being the modern day shouting match that we see now.
Yeah, there is very good dialogue in this movie between everyone, and you feel especially when they talk about war during this time, because there is the scene later in the film where um, Mel Gibson's character goes to visit Cornwallis, the general of the British Army,
Yes.
and they just have a conversation.
Yeah.
And it's and throughout the film they talk about the rules of war and where Jason Isaacs' character, who we have to talk about.
Oh, yeah,
That's a nasty man.
Yes,
He was
Colonel
very-
Tavington. His steps outside of the rules of war, and it feels like a gentleman's war. This really was in any sense of the fashion. But maybe we should take a step back and talk about the overall plot of the film. And so Mel Gibson plays the main character, Benjamin Martin. He is a former soldier, and now he is retired with his family. His wife has passed away. He is a father. I believe it was 7 kids he had.
7 kids, yes.
And this is right at the beginning of the Revolutionary War. And his oldest son, Gabriel, played by Heath Ledger, has enlisted himself into the army to take on the Redcoats. And from there, right at the beginning, Mel Gibson's character, Benjamin, is completely against his own family going to war because he knows the ruthlessness of it. He knows the damages of war because he was there. He's fought in it before. And from there, we get the big catalyst for the film, which is Jason Isaacs' character of Colonel Tavington, who shows up to the Martin house and kills the second oldest child as he is trying to save Heath Ledger's character Gabriel from being taken as a captor, or a prisoner of war. And so that is the real catalyst for the film, and that leads Mel Gibson's character Benjamin back into the fight and leading this ragtag group of militia during the American Revolution. And that is the big send-off for this film is Mel Gibson leading this militia army.
Well, I think between this movie and Mad Max, you've learned you just don't piss off Mel.
No.
Wow.
Right.
If you do something, if you do something to a family member, and it's like a light switch that turned on in that character. It grabs all his guns that he had from previously in the war and just starts off on a rampage going after whomever he can. And then, the scene where he ends up being quote unquote the ghost, where he gets rid of 20 redcoats.
I love that scene so much. I love it.
I'm glad you brought that up because one of in terms of him being the ghost, because when there is that turn and his son dies and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna do this here. I immediately thought that Mel Gibson was our 2000s John Wick. He had that catalyst of this is why I have to do it, and nobody's gonna, every punch he took, every knife, everything like that he took it, everything like that. He's like, I'm still gonna get up and I'm going to win this. I'm like, this is like John Wick 1.0.
Yeah, that scene where his house is burning after his son is killed, and they have taken Heath Ledger, and he runs back into the house. And from that point on, my adrenaline is just pumping for the next 2 hours of this movie because of how much energy is put into the revenge scene with him as the ghost in the woods. And he takes we should talk about this. There's a part in this, and I want to get your guys' opinions on this. In that scene where he is the ghost and he kills the 20 men, he also takes 2 of his sons out with him.
Who are very good shots, by the way.
Who are very good shots. They take after their dad, I suppose. How did you guys feel about that? I like that little wrinkle to it because in any other movie, it would probably just be Mel Gibson going on a rampage out in the woods. but I think that adds even more to the family dynamic that surrounds this entire movie.
Well, I think it. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say is that I think, I mean, if you really think about for the sake of the times and whatnot, these are kids that have probably been hunting and doing all the stuff that a kid would have been doing by the time he's 10. So the fact that he's taking his two oldest available sons, because one's dead, the other one's gone, to go help do this here, while basically the younglings are to wants to be staying back. So I kind of saw that as kind of an expectation of the times.
Yeah,
I would say so, very much so. The other thing that I thought of too is the fact that then it still comes back because he's the one says, "But I killed somebody," So it wasn't just that a youngster was trained to go out and take somebody else's life, and then Mel tells him as his father, "Yes, but it was the right thing to do." And this is one of those great movies where I love it for what it presents for the, horrific part of warfare, but also what it means. What would we be if they'd lost that war? What was the right thing to do? And what did it mean so that we could have our freedoms instead of the tyranny of like a King George? So, it's great at presenting that. And I love it when you can get such an even balance of two tales of a story.
Yeah, and I really do feel that because even though, Jason Isaac's character in this movie, maybe we should get to him next. He plays the main baddie of this movie, Colonel Tavington, and he is just the most ruthless character maybe ever. He is one of my favorite villains. I love him in this movie, but he is, I feel, is the character in this movie that is furthest away from anyone else portrayed in this movie, because even Mel Gibson, to a point, with his character, at certain points he is either side of the coin, especially when there's a scene where he shoots these redcoats that have surrendered. He just shoots them because he doesn't want to take any prisoners. That's on the bad side of the coin, but he flips to the other side. He's fighting for a good cause. Even with the other generals in the British Army, even Cornwallis, he understands the rules of war and humanity, but Jason Isaac has zero humanity in this movie.
Below zero, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, when he shoots the younger son, and there's just no
remorse.
Yeah, none at all. Not like, it's not even the usual, well, it's just part of war or anything like that. It's just, boom, I'm doing it because I'm evil.
I think even that's a very evil thing, and it sets off the entire story of the movie. But what he does leading to the third act of the film, when he locks the townspeople in the church and orders it to be lit on fire with them inside, I'm like, that's, like you said, he's below evil. He's worse than that.
Just the look on Adam Baldwin's face when he starts to even question his own comfortability and his loyalty to what he's supposed to be doing. At that point you can see that he's only doing it because he's basically, it's either I do this or I'm going to get killed kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, even to that respect of it, you start to see the wavering of the people who he's in command of, but they're only doing it because there's only two options: do it or die.
Yeah, some of the other things I want to point out, Jason Isaac is, I wrote in my notes, Jason Isaac is a bastard, and he is in this movie. But on the other side, Heath Ledger is fantastic in this movie. And a little side thing on this, and we talked about Mel Gibson playing Mad Max earlier. Heath Ledger was also in the running to play Mad Max at one point before his unfortunate death.
Yep,
so
he was the one that George Miller was going to be Mad Max, partly because of the Australian Mel Gibson connection, if I understand correctly.
Yes, and Heath Ledger, yes, he is an Aussie, and yeah, that's I thought that was just kind of fun to imagine we possibly could have had two Mad Maxes in this movie playing father and son, and along with that, one of the kids in this movie, the youngest son of Mel Gibson, is Logan Lerman, who we covered
Yes.
in Perks of Being a Wallflower, just a young, what, 6, 7-year-old Logan Lerman in this movie.
Yeah, I know. I was looking through the names and whatnot. I was like, okay, that name's ringing a bell for a moment. And I pulled up. I'm like, and at first I was thinking one of the older kids. I'm like, wait, the age range doesn't
Yeah.
cover for me, and I'm literally
Right.
having to like pick through the kids. I do want to bring something up just because I find the humor in this here, being the fact that we're talking about a movie about the Revolutionary War and all that kind of stuff. Is Mel Gibson is the only one who's kind of the main characters. Mel Gibson's the only one who's kind of sort of partly American.
Yes.
He's the one who was born here but moved to Australia, so he's kind of Australian American. We've got the Australian in Heath Ledger. Isaac and Tom Wilkinson are from England or from Europe, so it's like this. Oh, and Roland Emmerich is German.
Yeah.
So we have all of these people from outside telling us this amazing story from our history.
Well,
Hey,
sometimes I think those people are the ones that take it in more. We take it for granted. They look at
Right.
it and go, wow, this is so intriguing. This is such a great story.
Wow, these
Then-
guys were idiots. Why were they doing that?
Yeah. Imagine all the things that they went through. But you know who I like in it is Chris Cooper.
Yes.
I think he is such an underrated actor. And I'm glad to see that, he had so much in this movie. But then, 2 hours, 45 minutes, a lot of people are going to get some good time in it, some screen time. But he's one of those that, the average person that goes to a movie probably isn't going to know who Chris Cooper is. And then
people
he's,
like us will know who Chris Cooper
right,
is.
yes. And then he's one of those that pops up in a mini series or something. You go, oh, yeah, him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I thought he did an outstanding job in this.
Yeah, I want to back up on one thing Brian said about not enough Americans in this movie. Donald Lowe is in this movie, and I don't think we get a more American than Donald Lowe.
True.
Who is he's just given this is a very big cast, and everyone is cast very well, even in their small roles in this movie, including, like I said, Donald Lowe in this. And I feel every character that they at least give name to or give some recognized screen time to gets an arc. Everybody gets an arc in this.
Right.
Donald Lowe even gets, he has maybe a couple lines of dialogue, but he still has a character arc in this movie. And I feel it's just a very well-crafted action war film, and one that I feel is a genre that I feel is very overlooked these days, because I feel we get the CGI spectacle. Everybody wants to, for some reason, be Pearl Harbor and not Saving Private Ryan or even The Patriot, but the last one I remember that would kind of fit in the same genre as The Patriot was the Mel Gibson directed Hacksaw Ridge.
Oh, great show.
Yes. And I think Mel Gibson really relates to those type of stories, especially him as a director and an actor, where you focus on a character who has family and beliefs. And say what we will about Mel Gibson, I think that's just the elephant in the room about his personal stuff. But Mel Gibson, the actor and director, he's one of the best we've had.
Yeah, pretty top. Pretty top.
Yeah, some of the things I was pulling up here, I was just pulling up some of the trivia. Heath Ledger, he performed his own stunts in this, and knowing him as an actor, that does
Doesn't
not surprise me.
Right.
No, and there's probably a few people who probably were on the same lines of that. I mean, yeah, obviously you had a few characters where stunts were not necessary and whatnot, but I would imagine for the ones that we had in there, I think they would probably have done quite a bit their own. I mean, horseback riding isn't that hard.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford was originally offered the lead in this movie, but declined. So
I don't know if I could see that working, to be honest.
No.
yeah, it'd be a different movie.
No.
It'd be a very different movie.
Very much so.
Patriot.
Yeah. What are some of your guys' favorite scenes in this movie? If you had to choose one out of this movie to show someone who has never seen The Patriot and say this is what the movie is, what scene would you guys show them? Brian, I'll throw it off to you for this one.
One of the ones I would say is just right off the top is when the ghost takes out the 20 redcoats. When you see that communication between him and his two boys, and being the vet, it's those things that I remember from history class when that's how we figured out how to be able to win the Revolutionary War, was the Indian tactics, not having to walk in a straight line kind of thing, to be able to take those, to take shelter behind things, to be able to make sure you're not going to get shot all the time and whatnot. So I think that one there is a very good, outstanding point to kind of showcase where this is going to go.
For me, it was For me, it was when they burned down his house and shot his child, and then he goes up, grabs those guns and his hatchet, and just arms himself and takes the boys with him, and then tells the girls to watch out and get down to their aunts, because that is just such a turning point, as you mentioned earlier, but also it's such a protecting of family and protecting a soon-to-be nation, and that really hit me hard in that.
The scene I think I would choose, just so I go a little different than you guys, because I think that might be my favorite scene of the film, is the ghost scene. I might go with the prisoner exchange scene, because that also includes the humor in this movie. You get the conflict, and you get who everybody's character is at this point. You get who Mel Gibson is. You get who Jason Isaac is. You get who Tom Wilkinson's Cornwallis is. You understand who all these people are just in that scene of this exchange, and I just love the line of "I will kill you before this war will end," and then Mel Gibson just soon, you just know it's going to happen. I feel there's a couple lines in this movie where my adrenaline is just pumping, just the way Mel Gibson delivers some of these lines. It's, in many ways, I like to call this in the genre of dad movies, because I feel everybody's dad loves The Patriot.
Oh, this is totally a dad movie.
Very true.
It's a dad movie, but dang it, I love dad movies. They are a blast. Mel Gibson is a dad actor, that's for sure. I grew up on Mel Gibson. He was a big face on the VHS cover arts of many of the tapes that we had at our house. And yeah, this is one of his best for sure.
I do want to say, for the sake of the humor and whatnot, in that particular scene where we're talking about when he's having the conversation with Cornwallis and having the gentleman's conversation and whatnot, that the Great Danes turn on Cornwallis.
Yes,
and at first he's just like, nope, you guys stay here, and they're just all like, oh.
And then gets outside of the mansion and whistles, and they come running after him. I loved it. That was so fun.
Even the dogs had a sense of humor in that film. Even the dogs had like an energy and an emotion to them.
Yeah, that's what I love, that there is these moments of levity in this movie, and there's plenty of them. I mean, one that has always stuck out with me is Heath Ledger and his bride with the what is it, the ink in their mouths?
Yes.
The ink in the teeth.
All their teeth.
Yeah. And the running bit throughout the story, and the movie kind of starts with this, is Mel Gibson is trying to build a rocking chair throughout the movie, and he ends up right before the exchange scene, he's inspecting Cornwallis's rocking chair to see how he put it together. It's just the little moments like that add some humanity and levity to this movie.
Right.
For me, another great scene is at the end, when they get back and the militia is now rebuilding his home. I love that. It's like, this is respect for you, not just as a human, but as somebody that led us, and that is, someone that is helping out fellow man and a new country. I just brought a little tear.
Yep.
Yeah.
I will say, for the sake of that last scene where he does get his just dessert and he does be able to take out Jason Isaacs' character, is again I kind of attribute to the whole John Wick thing, is that Jason Isaacs thinks he's got that last bit on him, and he just tilts his head just so quickly off to the side, turns around, and just stabs him straight in the stomach. I'm like, that's just the bow to everything that has happened.
It's satisfying, and I
It
feel
is
like
very satisfying.
with many action movies, especially that we get today, you don't get. I never feel as much satisfaction when someone gets their revenge. You know, John Wick is, of course, we mentioned a couple times here today. I think that's a very much an exception to those, and that's a very different style of action. But in this, you want Mel Gibson to get him. You want him to get what's coming to him. And when that finally happens, this near 3-hour journey that we are taking on it's fulfilled. And I feel fulfilled watching this movie. Do you guys have any other final thoughts on the Patriot and this film?
I just think that, as we are, in a really different part of history right now, and there's so many people saying that we're trying to erase some parts of it and so forth. Watch this for just a great film. Watch it for the history as well, though, because, who's to say that things might not even have been worse? So take it in, enjoy it, but also think about it.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing I noticed at this time is they don't touch on it too much in this, and that's more of the period in which this movie is set in, but the way they represent African American characters in this movie, I feel, is very respectful.
Yes.
Because there is a couple times in this movie, and I would have to pull up the actor's name. The one that is having the banter with Donald Lowe throughout this movie, who he's trying to get his freedom by joining the army, and as soon as he serves a year, he can be free and do his own thing. But he chooses to stay and fight because he believes in it at that point, and that's just, I feel it's a very good moment in this. This movie is filled with great small moments, and that's one of my favorite ones that. People talk about Mel Gibson in this movie and Jason Isaac, and we've gushed about them for a while now. But I feel the small moments like that really make the Patriot one that I want to revisit quite often.
Well, and you touched on it though too, is like, say, with Donald's story arc and whatnot. His story arc is literally wrapped all around that, and you see him going from this guy that looks down upon him because of his race and whatnot, to by the end, he's an equal, and that has nothing to do with it, and he was willing to stand and fight with this guy. So I mean, just their chemistry together as well, for what little bit you even get on screen, I think is very dynamic.
Yes, it is. And
sign of a good director.
Yeah. Before we take off, I do want to talk about the director, Roland Emmerich, because I mean, another movie we could have covered and would have fit the theme for this month very well is a movie called Independence Day.
Yes.
That was a movie he had done just a few years before this, and that very much well could have fit in this. But I feel the Patriot is one that's
maybe a little bit.
We'll go
more.
through it a little more chronologically, huh?
Yeah. We'll eventually get to Independence Day, maybe. But yeah, this is, I mean, looking at his filmography, and I'll just name off some of his most famous films: Universal Soldier, which is, it's a guilty pleasure. Stargate, Independence Day, Godzilla, then The Patriot, The Day After Tomorrow, 10,000 BC, which no one remembers, 2012. He also did White House Down and Independence Day Resurgence, and then Midway. So he did return back to the war type films, but even looking through those near 20 titles, I think The Patriot is the big standout out of that.
No doubt about it.
I just want to point out the fact that he doesn't know how to make a small film.
Well, no, he doesn't. No. I mean, looking at all of these, I would say, even though The Patriot is very big in scale, it is probably his most personal and smallest film, I guess, if you could put it that way. Out of any of them, I mean, White House Down, which, I mean, is basically a 2-character show, but this one really hits the heart of what he was trying to go for.
Day After Tomorrow. See that takes me back to something you mentioned, feeling satisfied. Where
Mhm.
when I first saw that, I don't know if I was, but yet I'm intrigued that I want to watch it again some point and see if I feel
Yeah.
differently about it now.
Mm-hmm.
That one is actually, I think, out of his filmography, I think that's my second favorite. I really do like that movie too, and that one has a very similar. He has the father-son themes in that one
Mhm.
too, which I think they don't work as well as The Patriot, but I think they add some humanity to the now infamous Roland Emmerich disaster films, which he has been doing for quite a while.
Just a couple of them.
Just a couple of them. All right, so let's wrap up our conversation on The Patriots. Of course, this movie is available on Netflix right now, so if you want to check out the film over
Hulu.
Hulu.
Hulu as
Hulu.
well. Okay,
Yeah.
Oh, did you watch it on Netflix?
I watched it on Netflix, so
Oh.
it's
I only found it on Hulu, so I watched it
Yeah.
on Hulu. So
Yeah.
hey, look, it's on a couple places.
even easier to find then. So The Patriot, widely available. If you have not seen it or had not watched it in a while, highly recommend from myself. What about you, Dave? Do you? I think we get it from our conversation how we all feel, but would you recommend The Patriot to our
Oh.
listeners?
Undoubtedly, yes. This is one that you just, it has to be in your, some people watch a lot of films, so it's got to be at least in your top 100. I would say it's easily in the top 10 for me.
Wow.
Yeah,
High regards. It's
I definitely put it up there. It's tough, however, to beat, for me, A Few Good Men.
Ooh, definitely.
mhm.
That is my absolute go-to. Whenever it is on, I can pick it up at any point. That's the default movie.
Brian, what about you? I think we know the answer, but I have to ask it. Do you recommend The Patriot?
I would definitely recommend The Patriot. It's a very well done movie. Like you said, it's beautifully shot.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting, it's not necessarily based on a true person, but it's based on true facts. And it does give you an interesting peek into our history. Very accurately, I think. And definitely something that I think anybody should spend the almost 3 hours watching.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll leave it off on this last note. It was nominated for 3 Oscars, including Best Sound, Best Cinematography, and something we have not touched on yet. And I feel we should just touch on it very briefly here. Best Original Score by Mr. John Williams.
It's too bad that guy can't create some really good music, said
Yeah.
Mr. Sarcasm.
Yeah.
that little independent guy that nobody's heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny he hasn't done anything before or after this movie. Yeah. This is a very underrated John Williams score, too. I think the score is immaculate in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that will wrap up our conversation on The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson, directed by Roland Emmerich. So before we leave off, I want to throw it off to our guest for this day, Mr. Dave Holly. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm glad we got to talk about, one of your favorite movies of all time, in The Patriot.
Yeah, and thank you guys for the invite, because I've been paying attention to your podcast as well, and I love the themes that you come up with. I'm very much looking forward to Sly and Arnold. I think that's going to be really enjoyable and see where all that goes. But definitely, you guys are doing such a great job, and thank you for providing a podcast like this on a local basis. And just thanks for allowing me, and we're returning the favor as soon as we can here, and you guys will be guests on mine.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If people want to find your show, where can they find it?
It's available if you search Dave Holly Hour on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and then there's also a place called Podbean. And if you like the Dave Holly Hour on Facebook, that comes out immediately after I posted it through Podbean. It comes up with the new show, and then from there I start to share it. And I also will tell people how to get there on my Instagram account and also Twitter. So Dave Holly Hour for any of those. And if all else fails, go to davehollyhour.com, and you can get to everything through that.
Perfect. Perfect. We will put that in the description of this podcast and the post on our website as well. And where you can find us, we're a very similar thing. We're pretty easy to find. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, simply at Backlot 605. Brian, where can they find the podcast on all the podcast services?
On podcasts, where you can find us obviously on YouTube here, but Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and
Google.
Oh my God! Thank you, Google
Yes.
Podcast. Wow, I had it.
That little search engine, Google.
Yep, my little search engine.
We are also on backlot605.com, where you can find our latest movie news, reviews, articles, and discussions. And you can also join the South Dakota Film Community Group on our Facebook as well and join the conversation there. And before we wrap it up, big thank you again to Mr. Dave Holly for joining us on the show. And we have to have you back on sometime. And I might have an idea very soon for you.
All right. I look forward to it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And once again, you can check us out next time on the Backlot of South Dakota.